Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Aviation Nerd Podcast. Our guest this episode is Greg Colyer, and what an aviation story he has. Greg grew up loving airplanes and dreaming of becoming a pilot. Later on, he decided to join the Army, where he served for several years. After leaving the Army, Greg became an air traffic controller and even flew as a pilot for some airlines. Then, Greg decided to take a leap and buy his own jet, a T-33 Shooting Star. For the past 18 years, Greg has been flying his T-33 on the airshow circuit at airshows all across the world. In this episode, we take a deep dive into Greg's career. We learn about how he first got into aviation, lessons that he's learned throughout his aviation career, and even some of his most memorable experiences as being a performer pilot in the T-33 Shooting Star. So please help me welcome Greg Wired Colyer to the podcast. Good. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to come onto the show. I think you're gonna be a really great guest. I remember I saw your demo at Oshkosh, and it was incredible. The second you landed, I reached out and said, I gotta contact this guy. I've got to talk with him. That was an incredible demo. But I've got to know, how'd you get your start in aviation? How'd you know you wanted to pursue a career in that?
Well, nobody in my family was a pilot or an aviator. It's just when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I just wanted to be a pilot, and that's when my mom told me I started talking about I wanted to be a pilot. So I don't know where it came from, So it's the only thing I ever wanted to do, and so I just kept dreaming of it, and I got my first airplane ride when I was about 7 years old with oral surgeon. My mom worked for a dentist, and I found out he had some airplanes, so I kept begging her to ask him to take me for a ride, and he did. So I got my ride there at 7 in a 182. And after that, I went on an airliner here and there, but then I didn't really fly again until I was 18.
Yeah. And from what I understand, and I think it says it on your hat, but you did go on to serve in the Army. So I imagine there's tons of skills that are taught in the military. But what were some skills that you were able to take from the military that carried on to the aviation world?
Well, I went in the Army to try and be a helicopter pilot, but a knee injury and that stuff kept me from doing that. But the Army, serving the military, the discipline, the working as a team, accomplishing a mission. There are so many things that the military, teaches you and ingrains into you. Being thorough, all that stuff just goes through into, not only aviation, but whatever career you're going to go into afterwards.
Yeah, those are definitely some great life lessons. And from what I understand, after you ended up leaving the Army, you ended up becoming an air traffic controller. So how did you decide that was the route in aviation that you wanted to do?
While I was in the Army, I did my fixed wing training with actually the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, flying T-34 Mentors. And I wanted to be my next goal. When I was really younger, I just wanted to be a fighter pilot. That's what I wanted to do. Navy or Air Force. But then I saw an opportunity while I was still in high school to try and go the Army route and be a warrant officer and fly helicopters, because you could do that. And so that was what I decided to do. Which didn't work out. So after I hurt my knee, obviously going back to college and trying to get back in the service as a fighter pilot wasn't going to happen. So I got out, and my goal was to be an airline pilot back then. And then I always wanted to fly warbirds and things like that. But my avenue, okay, I'll be an airline pilot. But in the mid 80s, in like 1987, it was very hard to get in with a regional, and they didn't pay very well. And my oldest son was born, and my ex-wife didn't work. And so I couldn't live off $9 an hour, which the regionals paid back in those days, if I did get hired. So I decided, okay, I'll be an air traffic controller, because I had taken the test when I didn't think I could get my medical back, and I passed it, and they offered me a job, and I said no. Because I wanted to pursue flying. But then other circumstances, made me go, okay, that's a good viable option for a career in aviation, and it pays well. So that's why I became a controller.
Yeah, that sounds like a great path. And I haven't had the opportunity to have any other air traffic controllers on the show before, so you are the first. So if you'd be interested in sharing, I know you shared some of the lessons you learned from the Army, and I'm sure in your earlier years in aviation, you were probably compiling a bunch of lessons that you have taken on now. But what were some lessons that you took from your time as an air traffic controller?
Well, I mean, air traffic controller, I mean, you have the experience, and I mean, obviously, that you have a lot of organizational skills, you have a lot of prioritizing skills, you have a lot of, I mean, being an air traffic controller, it encompasses much more skills than just what you would think. You got management skills, you got, prioritizing skills. You learn to stay calm and under high pressure environments. You're a good organizational person because you have to you know um, divide up your task and put them in the priorities that what's important first and what has to go second and third. um, and then again, communication in ATC is vital, right? And thinking on your feet and going to plan B if plan A doesn't work, and then going to plan C if plan B doesn't work, and being willing to just change at a moment's notice and think on your feet. So um it that helps, that helped me on the pilot side as well. Just and then of course working as a team member, because you're working not only with the pilots, but you're working with your fellow controllers in the adjacent sectors, the adjacent facilities. And so it was a pretty and it was a very great, I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was challenging, it was rewarding. I didn't find it stressful at all. I mean, so it was a great choice.
Yeah, it's interesting you say you didn't find it stressful. I've always thought air traffic controllers have tons of stress. But yeah, is there?
Yeah,
Yeah, is there?
yeah, if you take any job, air traffic control, pilot, doctor, lawyer, police officer, school teacher, uh, somebody who works at Jack in the Box, right? If you take 20 people at each of those jobs, you're gonna get a third of the people that are stressed out all the time, and a third of the people that are only stressed out maybe when it's super busy or under, stressful times. And then you're going to get a portion of those people that are never stressed out. It's just a personality thing. And ATC, I don't stress about stuff and I don't worry about things. So, and I found ATC, it was fun and a rewarding career, but yeah, I was never stressed out in it. It was, so I'm just one of those, I fell into that group of people.
Yeah, sounds like a good characteristic to have for an air traffic controller, not getting stressed. And I imagine, as you are now a pilot, and you were at the time, and having the experience of an air traffic controller, that you've probably been able to, think, oh, I know what this air traffic controller is thinking, or as an air traffic controller, I know what this pilot's thinking. And I'm sure that's probably helped you in a lot. But is there any specific scenario that comes to mind that you've been able to either maybe help a controller out or help a pilot out?
Well, um, yeah, I mean, as a controller, you know, I mean, I was a pilot when I was a controller, so I knew what the pilots were thinking, and I knew, I mean, being a pilot helped me do the job better because I knew aircraft performance, and I didn't have to like say things more than once because I would only give instruction of what I knew an aircraft could actually do. Right? I wouldn't tell them to do something the plane couldn't, it wasn't capable of doing. But then as a pilot, um, I'm listening to controllers, obviously. So if I hear somebody miss a read back or um, the controller says something that they shouldn't have said or wrong, I'll pull it up and I'll question it to them. And I mean, it happened to me once when I was flying at SkyWest. We were departing San Francisco and they switched runways on us, but then they didn't switch my departure. And then so the new departure, I mean, the departure I was flying on, because I was taking off of one right, it has a right turnout, and then they put us on the left runway, right? And then I asked them what departure, and they're like, "Oh, it's the same departure." And I'm like, "Well, can't that's going to put us into the airplane that's beside us." So, and then they stopped and they put us on a different departure. So, just little stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it was a valuable experience for you and something you took away from that. So let's get into the exciting stuff, the air show flying that you do now. I think you're probably most known for the air show stuff that you do now. And like I said earlier, the demo that you do with the T-33 is very impressive with the Ace Maker T-33. But how did you originally get into air show flying?
I bought a jet I couldn't afford,
Good answer.
which was pretty much it. I when I bought my T-33 in 2008, my first one, I just bought it to fly for fun. I worked on it myself. And back then, when I first bought it, jet fuel was about $1 a gallon. So I figured I could fly it 30 minutes every week for $200 and work on it myself. And I chose to buy that instead of like a Porsche 911 or a BMW M6. That was like my discretionary income. And after I bought the jet, a few months later, the economy, went downhill in 2008, and in the span of a few months, jet fuel climbed to almost $8 a gallon. So I couldn't afford to fly the jet or even start it almost. So I decided, maybe I'll become an airshow pilot and get some free gas. So, um, trained, I taught myself aerobatics. I got my SAC card for flying air shows, and I started flying air shows, um, and I instantly was pretty popular, and I was flying, like, even my first year I flew 20 shows. So by the third year I was doing, the first year I didn't make any money, maybe a couple $100, but I got free gas. I flew my jet 100 hours. I got hotel cars, stuff like that. And then second year I was able to pay my insurance, pay for my hangar. And then the third year I did pretty well, and I made about what I so I where'd you go? So yeah, so it was working out financially. So after a couple solid years of that, I stopped being a controller, and I just went. I mean, I was always full time in the airshow circuit, but for the first few years, I was doing both. I'd work Monday through Thursday as ATC, and then go to an air show every weekend and fly Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and go back to work. Um, but then after a few years, I decided, okay, I can just live off being an air show pilot. So that's what I did.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you touched on a little bit. I was actually going to ask this a little bit later on, and you did touch on it briefly in the last question. And it said you said that you bought an airplane that you couldn't afford, but was there really any financial plan that you had for buying an airplane? Because that's not cheap.
Nope. Back then, I didn't have a ton of exposed disposable income. I was divorced, and I was paying a lot of child support, and so I didn't have a lot of disposable income. But I decided to buy the T-33 because at the time they were pretty affordable because they burned so much gas, so nobody wanted to buy them. And I was in the right place at the right time. Like when I started flying air shows with the right airplane, and then nobody else was actually doing what I was doing, and I came up with a business plan, and like instead of being a guy that wanted to fly air shows for fun, I had to make it work and financially work out because I wasn't a millionaire, so I couldn't afford to just do it for fun, right? I had to make it into a business and make a living at it.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. And
Did I answer that question? Is that the one you asked?
yeah, that was a good answer to it. Yeah. But yeah, other than the fact that it was relatively not too expensive, what do you like so much about the T-33? I mean, I can tell from watching you fly at Oshkosh that it's a really good airplane. But what do you like so much about it and flying it?
It was one of my favorite jets as a kid. I mean, I loved the World War II fighters and bombers, but I didn't have millions of dollars to buy a Mustang or a Corsair. And the T-33 was just one of my favorite planes as a kid, or the P-80, our first operational jet from the Korean War. I loved the Kelly Johnson designs at Lockheed, and the T-33 was, or the P-80, the Shooting Star, I should say, was the Skunk Works' very first, project jet. And so it has a really good history lineage. It served in the Air Force and the military for over 50 years, and pretty much every Western or NATO country flew it. Um, so when one became available that I could actually kind of afford, but to buy it, it wasn't. I mean, I was stretched pretty hard. I sold this little L-29 jet that I had bought pretty cheap, and I was able to make some profit on that. And I put that on it. Then I got a loan, and I was able to just like, okay, that's it. Like I said, I bought it, and the loan payment was like buying a fancy car, but I was paying on a jet instead of a Porsche, you know. But then when it became unaffordable to fly, that's when I went, I made the business and I started flying air shows.
Yeah, sounds like you did it a pretty good way. It sounds like you had a lot of fun in that. And wait on to the next question is what's a memorable experience you've had? Because I've spoken with several former Blue Angels and several former Thunderbirds, and they're some of their favorite parts of their job is to get to go to the crowd and get to interact with people through that connection of loving aviation. So, what is through the world of air shows and aviation an interaction that you've had that was really memorable and experience that
You
was
know, flying air shows is, I mean, not only is it, fun to fly the jet and, push it to his, fly it on the edge of his envelope, but the, the people and sharing the passion, because my passion has always been aviation, and to share that with other people, and or the veterans or the next generation and the people whose dads flew them, the T-33, it has a soft spot in a lot of people's hearts, and just sharing that with them is incredible. And like one of my and giving people, being that I built this all on my own too, and I was just a normal working guy like you or anybody else. I didn't come from any special wealthy family. I made it all happen on my own by hard work and not never giving up, and just kept pushing for those dreams. So, um, I hopefully people can see that are dreaming of the same thing. They're saying, "Hey, I could do that too." And the key is never give up and never say no. And I might be the type of person though that, like, if the door opens and I don't think about it too much, I just run and jump through the door, jump off the cliff, as I tell people sometimes, and I'll figure it out on the way down, and how to make it work. But when the opportunity arises, you can't. A time you can't stop and think about it. You got to just jump at the chance and then figure it out later, and make it work. And you know what? If you fail, you can do it again and try again. But I mean, I'd much rather be sitting on my porch when I'm 90 years old saying, well, at least I tried, even if I didn't make it, then, I wish I would have tried. Right. So it's better to try and fail than to just sit there and dream. Like I tell people, there's dreamers and there's fantasizers, and dreamers usually find a way to make it happen. And fantasizers just do that. They just think about it, and fantasize about what if or whatever. But again, the people, like when COVID happened and there was no air shows, I didn't miss the flying. I only missed the people. I missed all my friends, because all the people that I grew up reading about in magazines, um, and I, looked up to and, idolized and everything. All those people now are my friends. So the family, the air show family, the aviation, I mean, aviation world's small, and the air show family inside of that's a little tiny nucleus. But then, um, things like a really special moment for me, as I flew a show once in McCord Air Force Base. It was actually a pretty good weekend, because it was more than one thing happened that was pretty special. But the main thing was I was signing autographs, and uh, a teenager was talking to me, and he only had one arm, and he wanted to talk to me about becoming a pilot. So I was telling him what to do, and his parents were standing behind him and asked me to talk some sense into him that he couldn't be a pilot because he only had one arm. And I'm like, how, why would you tell your kid they can't do something? He can do it. He was 16 years old. And I said he could be a pilot. He might not be fly for Delta, but he could definitely be a pilot, and maybe even a flight instructor or do something like that. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And so I told him some ways to go and demonstrated ability and all that stuff. And when I came back 2 years later, he was actually 15. When I came back 2 years later, they were waiting for me when I landed on Thursday, and he had just gotten his pilot's license the day before. So um, that was a pretty special moment. And so they got permission from the Air Force Base to be on base when I showed up, so and they told the story to them, and and so that was a pretty special moment that I, was able to convince him and him that he could do it, and also that that his parents should back him up and push him to do it instead of telling him he can't do it.
yeah.
So,
That's,
yeah.
that's a great story. Yeah, I love those inspirational stories like that, and I've definitely heard some stories like that. It's all about the people that from airshow pilots and people who get to interact, these aviators that get to interact with people, and they love the people, and it's great to hear you say that you also do as well. And a great story of keep pushing, don't
Yeah,
just because you've
you
been.
too. Told me I mean a lot of people told me I couldn't do it as well. They're like, you can't do that, or you're not rich, you can't do what you're trying to do. Um but you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, for sure. Great words. Um, yeah, before we wrap up here, I always like to hear how aviation has actually changed people as a person. So how has the world of aviation, being involved in aviation like you have, changed you as a person?
You know, I don't know if it actually changed me as a person. 'Cause I've kind of always lived my life a certain way, and I mean it's obviously I have I'm like I mean I'm just not a normal. I like to think of myself as a normal person, but obviously in the world of aviation, being at air shows, I'm in the public eye, right? So it's I mean that hasn't changed me, but it just you gotta. Uh, that's a tough question. So if it's changed me, I don't know uh, how it has, but I mean, all I know is I savor every minute and I'm grateful for everything I get to do. And I don't take anything for granted, but, I never took anything for granted before all this stuff happened to me. I was just like, I wake up every morning and I'm a happy person. And if I wake up in the morning and I go to bed at night, I'm happy no matter what happens during the day. I'm just grateful for the day and I make the best of whatever situation is going on. So, obviously, aviation and everything I've got to experience and do has just been, I pinch myself every day that it is what it is. So, but I'm grateful and I want to share that with everybody else. And if I can people I do that. So it has changed me in a way that I actually have the opportunity now to help others that are trying to do the same thing, or um, and show them ways to do it, and or maybe help them achieve their dreams. And if I can help somebody achieve their dreams and they can be more successful than I am, then I did my job. And nothing that would make me happier than to see somebody that I mentored or helped and they did better than I did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a great answer. I heard you say great things, gratitude, positive attitude. I've heard those are very important, very, very important skills, not just in aviation and life overall. And I mean, maybe we could say, I'm not to put words in your mouth, but maybe you could say the world of aviation has even helped you be more you. So that's a great thing. You said,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that my inner self, and it.
yeah,
You know, I always like the public, and I mean, and being, out there. So it did help me. It actually like helped me be like let out my inner self,
yeah,
and grow. Or I mean, I definitely grew more as a person, um, and the experiences, and the setbacks, the leaps forward, and all the incredible things I've got to do. Is just I'm grateful for all of them, and the key is be grateful, be positive. Um, if you always look at the like my glass, I can have an inch of water in my pint glass or three drips at the bottom, and my glass is almost full, right?
yeah.
So I'm not a half empty type of person. I'm a full, it's always half full or full, overflowing. So it's just, and you'd be amazed at just what a positive attitude does for. I mean, I am extremely lucky, but when you, uh, but lucky, you also make your own luck by putting yourself in the position. So when a door opens, you're able to take advantage of it.
Yeah,
You know,
that is really great advice. That's some very good advice for that anyone can really learn from. And it's great to hear it. As far as questions, that's all I have for you. Do you have anything else that you would like to add before we wrap up?
like I said, been my eighth. This is my 18th season on the air show circuit, and it was my first visit to Oshkosh. because Oshkosh does not have a Cat 1 box that jets need to do for aerobatics. So it's never been like, and if you're not a performer, a selected performer, everything's on your own dime. I mean, your gas to get there, you guys to get home, your hotel, or your camping spot. And if you fly in the Warbird Review or something, they'll give you gas for one little flight. And then this year, my wingman and I were supposed to do our two ship act, which we take out the loop and we take out a couple of the passes. Then our whole demo is technically non-aerobatic, but one of the jets needed an engine change and it didn't get done in time. So, but they both said, "Hey, you can come and still fly and do your solo demo, but it'll be non-aerobatic." So I had to take out, my rolls and my loop and my Cuban 8 and that type of stuff. But I was able to do a little non-aerobatic routine that you saw. And so after 18 years and a whole life of dreaming of Oshkosh, it was a total honor to get to come and perform and enjoy the week. And it was definitely sensory overload for me. So, I mean, 5 days of a mecca of everything about aviation. So, but it was fantastic. And I got to fly 3 days plus the night show, open the night show. And I'm glad you enjoyed my demo, because I landed, I looked at the Goodyear blimp and I thought that's about as exciting as my demo was, going around just putting around. But because I'm so used to flying upside down and doing my normal stuff, that was actually kind of hard for me. Every time I turned the jet around to come back, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do my rolls now, or I'm gonna do my loop. I go, nope, I can't do that. So, but again, it was an incredible experience. I look forward to coming back next year, and hopefully next year they might have a jet box, or they might have or we'll do our two ship routine. And then, so it was a great time there. I'm glad you liked it. And I took the jet to Cleveland, which is my next show coming up at the end of the month. I'm doing the Cleveland International Air Show. And I actually have 4 shows in a row after that. I do Cleveland and Wildwood, New Jersey, Andrews Air Force Base, and then Oceana. And then I'll drop the jet off at Test Pilot School and leave it there for the Navy, because I teach there at U.S. Navy TPS. And come back to California. I'll use the other jet to fly a few shows out here: Plains of Fame, Fleet Week, San Francisco, and Huntington Beach. And then, so that's been, it's been a good season. Then another exciting thing that last year, the year before, the Pacific Air Show actually started doing a show called the Gold Coast in Australia. And the air show purchased a T-33, and we took it apart and shipped it down to Australia and put it back together again for me to fly once a year at a show down there. So I thought they were on drugs at first when they wanted to do that, but it's pretty exciting. So we got to fly the Gold Coast show last year for the first time. It's the first time a shooting star, either a P-80, T-33, whatever, but the first time a T-33 or a shooting star has ever flown in Australia. So that was a pretty spectacular moment. It was a crowd loved it. And but this year, unfortunately, that show is supposed to be next week, and it got wiped out from a typhoon, wiped out the beach. So there's no, they got to rebuild the whole beach area. So that's going to happen, so I kind of bummed about that. But next year it'll be back, and I'm looking forward to that show. And so it's been a good year so far.
It was great. We loved it. Do you have a favorite maneuver that you do? I'm sure you get that all the time, but do you have one?
I love opening the show and ending it with my photo passes, and but I start my show with a vertical roll normally into a split S loop Cuban 8. So I just I just start it with a lot of vertical stuff right in front of the crowd. Pretty much, it's I don't know if I have one particular favorite thing, because
As
I love doing my photo passes because I'm down low. I'm going really fast. I bank the plane up on its side. People can get a good view of the silhouette of the T-33, or the shooting star, that unique design. And the plane's really beautiful. It's a really graceful, smooth airplane. And as I tell people, it makes it easy to look good.
It did look good. So you did a good job. But yeah, I think the favorite one I saw was your I don't know if it has a name, but you did a high speed pass really low down on the runway. You didn't bank or anything, but that was one of my favorites because you really saw the speed of you going by. How fast were you going? If you can say, how fast were you going?
On Monday,
Yeah, Monday.
yeah, I was doing about 380 knots, 390 knots. Yeah, the Jets, it goes pretty fast. And yeah, I like my high speed low pass. I like too. It's fun. And the high G turn, and it kind of all blends together, So um, I just like showing that airplane's possible, capable of doing. Because my very first year, when the economy tanked, like I didn't go to the air show convention because it's always in December, and that had already passed, right? So all the air shows booked their acts at the convention. So I just emailed Seafair and Fleet Week in San Francisco and said, "Hey, I want to fly your show, blah blah." And they're like, "Oh, we only hire at ICAS." So I sent them an email. I go, "Well, if you get a slot or you open it up, let me know." And I put a picture of my jet, and then they called me back. "Is that what you fly?" I go, "Yeah." They're like, "I think we can make room for you." So, because I was basically doing it for a couple $100. I mean, gas, hotel, or whatever. And so that first year I flew Seafair, and was able to fly Fleet Week in San Francisco. And up in Seafair, millions of people see that show, right? And same with Fleet Week, and both of them at that time were on TV live, and so all these other shows saw me. So when I went to ICAS that year for the first time, I got booked up the first day because people had seen me fly at those two shows, and I already had a lot of exposure. So
First show
that
there in Fleetwood.
yeah, so that put me on the map as Seafair and San Francisco Fleet Week.
Yeah,
So,
but a lot of people can't say their first show was Seafair. It's probably a
yeah,
but not many people get.
I did one little tiny show like in Modesto or Madeira, but then Seafair was my second show ever.
Yeah.
So it, I was pretty fortunate about that.
Yeah. I do hope to see the show again sometime soon, and maybe even with a full jet box for you to do loops and rolls and
Okay.
all that.
Yeah, I mean all the other shows have the full jet box, so um, yeah, so it's been a good ride. But if anybody wants to look me up or follow me, they can my website acemakerairshows.com, or you can go to acemaker33.com. Will take you to the same place, or Acemaker Aviation is my actual main website, which those other two take you there. And on the website, lots of pictures, my air show schedules, some videos, a lot of videos on YouTube as well. And then on Facebook, Gregory Colyer, Acemaker Air Shows. You can find me there and follow along our adventures.
Great. All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Because yeah, that's all I got for today. I'll let you get back to you said you're
Have
working.
me really, you asked me, and yeah, just again, like as you said, help other people is like I definitely would not be where I am now if it wasn't for the support of not only my wife, who's also a pilot, 747s at UPS, she flies, but like all the friends and that and the other air show performers that like welcomed me with open arms and supported me and guided me through my early years to keep me safe, and give me pointers and stuff. So it's I definitely didn't do it by myself. I might have been the one pushing, but a lot of people helped me get to where I am today, like emotionally and supportive. So just want to say thanks to everybody. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been I'm honored you called, and again, I appreciate it.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, bye bye.